Descent of the Demon God. By Unjam. Chapter 141. Jarim. Part 1. The voice of Arkyung was filled with anger. Bewildered, Elder Wang shook his head. It had to be done. Even Arkyung knows better than this, right? Normally, Arkyung would have been swayed, but he was already betrayed today. If he hadn't seen the video of Mr. Cho, he would have blindly believed everything. Arkyung felt confused. It felt like all the people he trusted were betraying him one after another. Mr. Cho, who he thought was hiding in the mountains, was associated with an unknown organization and was a murderer. It was hard to believe. Would the elders spill out the truth to him in the fear of death? Elder Wang tried to appease Arkyung as he looked at Chen Yuan and said, "Your words aren't entirely believable." At that, Chen Yuan smiled. "There is a place where the four of you were hiding, Kunlun Mountains." How did you know? Both the men were surprised at it. They really said that? Information which couldn't be known. Of course, Chen Yuan got this by looking through the ghost memories. Either way, it was a decisive blow. Elder Wang, who was convinced the cover was blown, decided to plead. I was going to let you go. I've known you for nearly 100 years now, can't you believe me?" Arkyung's eyes were filled with disappointment. Human hearts are truly deceitful. Even though he believed in Arkyung for years, after knowing that he was involved in killing someone, he turned cold. How could this be? Nothing more could be said. He simply turned away his head. Arkyung could have resented the man, but he didn't. It was said that it was the last courtesy with the man he thought he was friends with. Enraged, Elder Wang yelled at Chen Yuan. "You bastard! Trying to divide us. Grab." Chen Yuan grabbed his mouth. Elder Wang couldn't even resist it. Chen Yuan opened his mouth. "I already know everything I wanted to know, which means there is no need to keep you alive." Chen Yuan already had all the necessary information from the other three elders. What was strange was that they believed in prophecies. A demon, which the sky is afraid of, causes great bloodshed, and was regarded as Chun Ma. And keeping it alive would cause troubles. "Wait!" Arkyung called out. "What? Please spare him. Don't commit any pointless murders for what happened because of misunderstandings." It seemed like Arkyung couldn't see this man die. At that, Chen Yuan shook his head. "Do you think the orders were to kill you? Then? I have been told that they were ordered to dispose of everyone who was related to the heavenly killing star in any place. Is there any reason to keep such a person alive?" At those words, Arkyung looked at Elder Wang. The old man didn't dare to look at Arkyung. This old man was the one who said nothing should be hidden between them. Since when did things change? Even just a few decades ago, it didn't seem like this. At that time, people who turned their backs on the world had strong characters and learned martial arts. An organization that showed extreme movement under the guise of justice. Was the cause Elder Macway Gang? Elder Macway Gang. 50 years ago, he made a name for himself in Murim and returned. Although he belonged to the younger generation compared to the elders, he quickly gained the elder title. However, he was different from the others. Probably an ideological problem. Arkyung spoke to Elder Wang in anger. "Are you trying to make blue sky again?" "Blue sky?" Hubong frowned upon hearing that. "My lord. They seem to be the remnants of that association." At that, Chen Yuan stroked his chin. "A little mixed." "What?" "It seems like the remnants of the Blue Sky Brotherhood are mixed with Unjarim." Unjarim. Like the name says, it was a hidden organization. The Rim was used for the Murim or martial arts warriors, which means hidden group of martial arts warriors. An organization which existed at Chen Yuan's time. Normally, it was a secret group made to prevent the Blade God from trying to control the Murim. However, after the death of Blade God, they became nothing but a group of hiding people. A sigh escaped from Arkyung's mouth. Of course, he knew that this man could figure out the organization, but it was still shocking to be mixed with it. Unlike Jarim, the Blue Sky was made up of extremists. It was a faction focused on creating blue sky. Made up of extremists who wanted to create a world of justice, and they wouldn't hesitate to massacre. At that time, a man named Hoju died in the hands of the Lord, didn't he? Blue Sky's Macway gang. An extremist. It was Chen Yuan who took care of him. Perhaps, if so, there was a chance that his bloodline had continued till now. Macway gang, was it? Reading Ko Jurayang's memories, he came to know about Macway gang's relatives. Probably the descendant. Hu Bong shook his head. Terrible people are born. Even at that time, those Blue Sky people always bothered Chen Yuan with trickery. They were really clever. From Heavenly Killing Star to the MS Group, and now the traces of Blue Sky. What an impure thing. Grab. Up. Chen Yuan clenched his hand around Elder Wang's mouth and ripped out his chin. Tear. Ak. Elder Wang, whose chin was torn off, collapsed with a scream. Wriggling, he died in shock after suffering. Seeing that, Arkyung turned away his head. As a Murim warrior, he didn't avoid killing, but it wasn't easy to watch the death of a man he considered his friend. Elder Wang. Arkyung clenched his fist and spoke to Chen Yuan. Kill me. He was the one who asked for death. There was no reason for him to live anymore. After all, he had lived enough and had no attachment left to life. His eyes were calm. Chen Yuan looked at him and said, "You are similar." What do you mean? East God Ark Wui. At Chen Yuan's words, he frowned. He wondered when they fought, but this man kept talking about his ancestor. Thinking about it, this man even knew how to use their family technique. Someone related to our Ark family? As he was puzzled, Chen Yuan said, "He was a true warrior." What are you saying? It was strange, the way he spoke meant he met with Ark Wui. At that time, Chen Yuan took the pose of Fist of Unification. At that, Arkyung's eyes fluttered. This? It was similar to their clans, yet there was a difference in the length and stride. And Chen Yuan unfolded it. Papa Pack. Every time Chen Yuan pushed his arm ahead, a strong wind pressure rose. Wyack. When he drew his hand around, the wind rotated, creating dust. Each move was their family's. At that, Arkyung's eyes had gone wide. No way. If the Ark family's technique was complete, was this how it would be like? It was a fist. A technique that has no gaps. Perfect execution. Chen Yuan exhaled. Phew. What the hell, what did you do? Void Fist Martial Arts. Void Fist? It was the technique which was completed with the dedication of Ark Wui. Arkyung was speechless at it. He heard of this technique. How can he? A technique made by the cultivation of the Ark family as fist martial arts. However, the technique disappeared and no descendant knew about it. The ancestors made every effort to relearn it, but it was never completed. However, seeing Chen Yuan do it, he was shocked. How did you learn that? I don't know, to meet the descendant of Ark Wui like this. I don't know what you were talking about. My debt to him. If it was not for Ark Wui, Chen Yuan might not have reached Heavenly Master level. He was the one who taught Chen Yuan how to cross the wall. Pang. Ugh. A strong wind pierced through Arkyung. It was the basic form. I will pay that debt now. I'm going to hand over the void fist. As soon as he heard those words, Arkyung felt goosebumps rise over his body. The legendary technique was lost within the family. Who would have thought that their own family's technique was being passed to him by another? Who are you? At that, Chen Yuan smiled. Chen Ma of the Great Sky Demon Order. Chen Ma. At those words, he was even more shocked. And I share a small relationship with East God, Arkwui. It was also a deep friendship shared on the battlefield of life and death. Places where the snow-capped mountains were a sight to see. Kunlun Mountain in the west of Qinghai Province. The whole mountain range was covered with snow. According to the legend, it was said to be the origin of the Yellow River. The mountain had a height of 7,167 meters. The Kunlun Mountains were the highest in the world except for the Himalayas. Also called Mount Song, and many legends existed about it. Some say it was the place where a palace existed, and some mentioned there was a place where once every 3,000 years a ceremony is held. It was a sacred place for many. Shh. 3 men were running fast in that place filled with snow. It was Chen Yuan, Hu Bong, and Arkyung. They protected their bodies with energy to avoid freezing to death. Shu. Arkyung. How long do we have to go up the mountains? Arkyung, who was leading them, answered Hu Bong's question. Soon. The place where they were heading to was the snow line, which was the holy land of the Unjam. I can feel energy close by. At Chen Yuan's words, Arkyung was shocked. The snow line was protected by a large force of energy, which meant that anything inside it couldn't be felt by the outside people. Yet, Chen Yuan could. As expected from teacher, Arkyung spoke in admiration. It was really fun. In just 3 days, they had become close. When he learned that Chen Yuan was the Chen Ma from 1,000 years in the past and had met with his ancestor, Arkwui, Chen Yuan said he was open to take Arkyung as his disciple, so he felt great. Despite his real age, Arkyung decided to call Chen Yuan his teacher. And Chen Yuan let him do what he wanted. It is here. Eventually, they arrived at the entrance of the snow line, which Arkyung spoke of. Hu Bong frowned. Huh? What is here? In front of them was a distant cliff. In reality, it was an ever-changing place, which made it impossible for one to understand it with the naked eye. Arkyung stood and pointed to the cliff. The ever-changing place in front of the snow line blocks entry each time, so if it isn't entered the right way, we will end up falling into a maze. So follow me. Saying that, Arkyung took a step ahead. And his feet sank. Huh? Arkyung pulled back his feet right away, and seeing that, Hu Bong said. And someone asked us to follow him. Arkyung felt embarrassed. It seems like the path changed. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. It was said that the person who built the ever-changing formation was famous. So it was known that this couldn't be broken, which was why Arkyung was at a little loss of ideas. Chen Yuan interfered. Stand back. Sorry? When Arkyung stepped aside, Chen Yuan stepped ahead. As they wondered what he would do, Chen Yuan drew out a sword. Shh. Sword? A sharp energy with eerie feelings, and a black line which appeared in the air over the cliff. Chapter 142. Jarim. Part 2. The blue roof of a tiled house was covered with snow. Above it stood a woman in her mid-30s in a simple blue dress and a middle-aged man in uniform with a stiff face. In front of the tiled house stood an old man with a gray beard and a robe. Huh? What do you mean by saying I can't meet the forest lord? I can't even see the elders and warriors who have gone out for 4 days now. The old man was Song Jingyu. He was the last descendant of the martial sword family and held the post of elder in Unjam. The woman responded to Elder Song's without changing her expression. "It is what you heard, Elder Song. Right now, my father is ill and it is difficult for him to talk, so please go back." The woman was Habekrayong. She was the only child of the forest lord and the head of Unjarim. Although she looked like she was in her 30s, she was actually in her late 60s. "Clench." Elder Song Jingyu clenched his hand and stared at the middle-aged man next to the woman. "That bastard. Mak Wei-gang." The middle-aged man was Mak Wei-gang. He was an elder of the opposition force and the husband of Habekrayong. It was like the originality of the stone was being shredded. Ever since this man stepped foot, Snowline's Unjarim was slowly swaying into his control. I should have never let her meet him. The men of Unjarim felt sorry for this child who spent her entire life in these snowy places and realized that she enjoyed Mak Wei-gang's company. Had they known that this would be the result, they wouldn't have allowed her to meet him. "It is serious, Mississippi. 4 or more elders can go out only under the permission of the Lord. It isn't something that Elder Mak can decide on his own." About 300 warriors of Unjarim had gone out without the Lord's permission. The fact that Mak Wei-gang dared to give orders to have the heavenly killing star killed without holding a meeting enraged Elder Song. It wouldn't be strange to deprive this man of the position. And there aren't many people following him. Normally, the line between the extremists and the moderates was quite tight, but at some point, more and more people moved to the extremist side. And 2 elders of the top 3 followed Mak Wei-gang. 80% of the elders followed him now. "This is a matter that I decided on behalf of my father." "Is that such a big deal?" At Habekrayong's words, Elder Song clicked his tongue. "Huh. Protecting that man." At least before this man appeared, Habekrayong was clever and sensible, but now she protected the man even if he was wrong. Nothing can be done. He wanted her to know what was right and wrong, but it couldn't be done anymore. Nothing can be done. Since he acted as the deputy, now allow me to organize a search party to find the elders we have lost contact with. Elder Song asked with a bow. It felt strange to treat this woman who lost her reasoning with respect, but he had to because she was the daughter of the Lord. At one time, when the world was devastated by war, it was this Un family that had accepted people. Nothing more can be done. More than 300 people have disappeared now. More than half of them were extremists, so he thought that people willingly went along with Mak Wei-gang. Habekrayong answered with a delay. I can see her eyes moving. I know they are talking with that damn telepathy. Discussing something. And then she opened her mouth. Obviously it makes sense. As a representative of the Lord, I give permission, so how could Elder Song and Elder Hyang work together? The moment he heard that, Elder Song's face was distorted. Elder Hyang was the leader of the moderate faction. It meant that they were openly trying to keep an eye on this man. Unable to contain his anger. Grunt. How can you? It was then. Before he could even say anything, a strange phenomenon occurred. The space around them shook and began to crack. JJKKK. What? What is this? The 3 of them couldn't hide their shock as they watched it. The entire line was surrounded by a technique and it would look like vast land for people on the outside. Fortunately, it was in the middle of the mountain, so no one could even come. Is the technique being broken? Elder Song Jingyu hurriedly said. Mississippi. We need to head towards the entrance of the line right now. The defense was located at the entrance. In case the outsider invaded, they could block them. However, the 2 people who were surprised with it didn't even think about moving. Miss? We will stay and protect this place. Huh? The Lord's condition is critical. How can I move from here? It makes sense that she wanted to stay here and protect her father. Elder Jiang is guarding it. Jiang Cheongguk, the best after the Lord. Even Mak Wei Gang, who was confident in his intelligence, wouldn't be able to surpass that man. And unlike those who came in recent times, Jiang Cheongguk has been protecting the family since ancient times. Didn't you hear her? Elder Song. Elder Mak asked. However, that only enraged the man more. You bastard! Did you forget that Miss is the only one who can take the role of the Lord? What do you think you say? Shoo! Ha Baekryong raised her hand at Mak Wei Gang, who was getting angry, and then spoke to Elder Song. If the enemy attacked right away, isn't it absurd for us to repair the technique right in front of them? That is. Elder Song was speechless. She was right. If the Lord, who was in critical condition, died now, then the entire thing would be revealed to the world. Quack. Go quickly. The Lord will be protected by us too. Elder Song stared at Elder Mak and then turned. He couldn't force them anymore. Fat. When Elder Song was long gone, with an irritated expression, Ha Baekryong mumbled. How long are you going to treat me like a child? This is. The elegance she had disappeared. Mak Wei Gang hugged her and comforted her. It is fine. After all, everything will change soon. Don't worry too much, wife. Hubby. Her expression brightened. She truly loved her husband and wanted to do anything for him. We were interrupted, so let's finish what we were doing. Mak Wei Gang said while looking at the entrance of the snow line. If the enemy really invaded, the time of chaos was the best time to do what they aimed for. Click. They opened the door to where the Lord was living, which had a musty smell and the smell of flesh rotting. In that dark room, the figure of the Lord was lying in bed. Blink. Grind. The Lord opened his eyes and grunted his teeth. His condition was strange. Starting with the blue blood vessels, a large part of the skin was rotting. Her father's condition was critical, yet the daughter was looking at him coldly. Mak Wei Gang approached him and pulled a small bottle with a dropper. He opened it, sucked liquid into the dropper, brought it to the Lord's eyes, and said, Now, Lord. Let's continue what we were doing earlier. Please tell me how we can open the chest. With that, he dropped the liquid into the wide-opened eyes of the Lord. At that, the man groaned in pain. Ack! His fists clenched as if he was trying to endure it. Seeing that, Mak Wei Gang mumbled. The patience of the person who inherited such blood. How long will that last? He dropped another drop of the liquid. And the eyes of the Lord began to tremble and his eyes lost focus. Mak Wei Gang smiled at it. Meanwhile, at the entrance of the snow line, unbelievable. Ark Young couldn't stop being shocked. Chen Yuan cracked the entire defense technique with one slash from a sword. And then the bridges which connected the cliffs appeared. It is as if he broke the world apart. The technique used to cover this place was an ancient one, and the man who did it was the forefather of Green Forest Lord. It was the first time for it to be broken. That sword just. A sword that destroys anything. Superior Sky Demon sword. Surprisingly, it could even cut through such things. It was the first time Chen Yuan tried it for such a thing, and it seemed to work. He. My lord is amazing. A new world opened up. The mountain peaks with a flat top were connected by swinging bridges and buildings with tiles. How was such a place hidden? Chen Yuan found it interesting. Until recently, it was hidden, but as he entered, he could feel the strong energy from here and there. Amazing. To hide all this energy. Chen Yuan was a bit skeptical. He thought Ark Young was deceiving him, but that didn't seem to be the case. He wondered who made it. Swoes. As they crossed the bridge and stepped onto the first peak, numerous soldiers in yellow uniforms flocked in front of them. Young said. Teacher. They are warriors of the 8th Squad, the entrance line. 8th Squad. The name of the first peak off the snow line. The snow line consisted of 9 peaks. And the first was 8th peak, the second was 7th peak, the third was 6th peak, the fourth was 5th peak, the fifth was 4th peak, the 6th was 3rd peak, the 7th was 2nd peak, the 8th was 1st peak, and the 9th was Heavenly Mountain Peak, where the Lord resided. If they were normally invited, they could easily enter. Through that, the next peak can be reached, and those who reach higher will be given the title of Elder. However, Chen Yuan broke into the place. And eventually, rumble. Soldiers in yellow uniforms with their weapons surrounded them. They were enemies. A middle-aged man. Entrance peak leader. Young mumbled. This man was the leader of this peak. He was second to no elder, yet he remained in his place to help nurture the new people. Young. What are you doing by bringing in people of the world into our place without the permission of the Lord? The people of Jarim called outsiders people of the world. Young tried to answer it. Sh. Teacher? Chen Yuan stepped ahead and stretched out his hand. The leader was puzzled, wondering what he was doing, when Chen Yuan suddenly lowered his hand. And, thud. Ugh. He was brought to his knees by force. What strength does he possess? Unbelievable energy. But not just him, the hundreds of warriors all were on their knees. Quack. And my body. Young couldn't hide his shock. Each of the warriors here were master level in the outside world. And who could bring them all down to their knees? Goo. The energy was making it hard for them to breathe. One by one, people were beginning to lose consciousness. Teacher. Since Young too was an elder, he was trying to talk to him. Chen Yuan said. What? Were you about to talk? Chapter 143. Jarim. Part 3. Mak Wei Gang went to the opposite cliff of Heavenly Mountain Peak along with his wife. The Heavenly Mountain Peak was located at the far end of the nice peaks, and was extremely tall. Mak Wei Gang looked around the place covered in grass. Red stone, red stone, red stone, found it. A piece of red stone visible through the grass. The first hint. Mak Wei Gang approached the stone without touching it and looked closely. It was shaped like a triangle, with the pointed end pointing to a certain cliff. Hubby. It is that. Ha Bekrayon pointed to the place, which was 10 steps away from the cliff. With both feet aligned, he took exactly 10 steps ahead, the right foot first. In the front, 3 times right foot, 3 candidates, 3 lefts. He moved like the Lord said, and so did his wife. After taking 3 steps, he took something out of his arms. A bottle of water. Shoo! He poured it to the floor in front of him. And when the water touched the ground, something happened. SSHHHH. The soil moved and something like a stone slab appeared. Hidden, inside, soil, on top, of stone, arises flame, weak. Mak Wei Gang created flame, and when it touched the stone slab, it cracked and then opened, showing them a stairway leading to a basement. Hubby. The road to the heavenly peak has opened, she said while leaning on Mak Wei Gang's back. The stairway would go down, but if they moved this close, they wouldn't take a couple steps either. The hidden 10th peak. His lips twitched. The time invested until the day came. The past 50 years he spent here. In order to obtain it, which was sealed by an ancestor, he worked tirelessly to gain trust of the Lord. Stubborn old man. However, even when the Lord trusted him, he never spoke about the hidden peak. It was his daughter who told him about it. Stupid bitch. She fell in love with him and told him everything. However, even she didn't know where that hidden peak was. In the end, Macway Gang had to resort to extreme methods and do this. He was worried his wife wouldn't allow it, but she let him poison her own father as revenge for her dead mother. What a wretched daughter you rose, Lord. She was of useful value to him because he needed her to have an official name here. With a sly smile, Macway Gang said to her, "Let's go in, my wife." The bridge which connects the fourth to third peak. There was a person running on it, Elder Song, followed by Elder Hyang, the leader of third peak. They could fly from one peak to another, but the reason they were using the bridge was because of the climate, which was unusual in the place. The moment they tried to fly, they would be dragged down. No matter how great the energy was, it would happen. What was certain is the movement had to be done on legs. We must hurry. He looked at the other peaks with a serious face. A great energy was approaching. And that too at a fast rate. What are the warriors guarding the other peaks doing? He couldn't understand. 50 people in the seventh peak were superior masters, so if they wanted, they could go against this intruder at once and end it. These people weren't called hidden martial artists for nothing. But what was this feeling? Elder Hyang, we need to hurry. All right. Elder Song moved faster to cross the bridge and headed to fourth peak. In front of them were two elders who looked blank. Elder Jarim, Elder Suk. Elder Song. You too. What are you doing here? Before he could even ask, a loud roar came from the other side. Quack quack quang. What is that? The peak on the other side of the bridge shook. It seemed like a fight was happening, and then it stopped. Not long after that, they saw three people walk out. Chen Yuan, Hu Bong and Ark Young. No, why is Elder Ark with them? The man called Elder Suk couldn't hide his shock. He knew that Ark Young would also be killed after Heavenly Killing Star was killed by the extremists. However, he was shocked to see that the man seemed fine. On the other hand, Elder Song and the remaining ones were shocked by other stuff. He is here in less than 15 minutes? The fact that they appeared here meant that those who were guarding the other peaks were defeated. There were only 3 left. Elder Song looked at Chen Yuan. Is he the one? Remarkably stronger than the other elders. An unknown intimidation from him. A strength which cannot be measured. It was the first time seeing such a monster. Elder Hyang spoke first. Wait, isn't that person the vice chairman of Yongchun Group who has been a hot topic recently? Yongchun Group? Demonic cult? Being in Unjam didn't mean living like a monk. They also watch TVs and use phones. And in order to prepare people for the prophecies, they often send people to the world to gather information. At the word demonic cult, the face of Elder Suk, an extremist, went stiff. Fat. How dare the members of the demonic cult step foot into the holy land of Unjam? I cannot forgive them. Fat. Elder Suk. He couldn't be stopped. Elder Suk rushed for Chen Yuan, who was crossing the bridge. Ark Young. I need to get rid of him before he spills something out. Actually, anger about the purity of Unjam was an act. What he cared for was killing Ark Young. Killing him before he spoke to other elders about what had happened. Doesn't seem to have senses. Seeing that, Hu Bong shook his head. Perhaps because he was in here all this time, he was proud of his martial arts. Take this. You bastard. Cha-cha-cha-cha. Elder Suk, a master of spears, created spear energy and performed techniques. His skills were different from the past peak's leaders. However, that is all. There wasn't much power to corner Chen Yuan. Chen Yuan moved through the trajectory without being hit. What? And he grabbed Elder Suk's face. Grab. What energy is this? Elder Suk raised his own energy to shake off the grasp, but nothing happened. Ark Young, who was watching it from behind, was shocked again. Incredible. Even the four elders were treated like kids. Elder Suk was a spearmaster of a reputable clan. Chen Yuan shook his head and asked Ark Young, "Is he an extremist or a moderate?" Knowing what he was asking it for, Ark Young answered in a weak voice. "Extremist. Extremist, huh, tainted with useless thoughts." Shocked by the strength, Elder Suk tried to struggle and get out of the grip. At that, Ark Young spoke. "That, teacher. I am close to Elder Suk, can't you show mercy to him?" Chen Yuan laughed and shook his head along with. Crack. Quack. Crush. He smashed the face without thinking. Elder Suk. Those watching from the other side screamed the name. Ark Young too looked away from the face of the dead elder. Chen Yuan threw the dead body off the cliff. That isn't the right way to think. Ark Young. But didn't you say to me? Those who are tainted with the blue sky ideology and Mac Wei Gang's orders are turning people into rotten water? Right. The change came 50 years after Mac Wei Gang joined. Originally, the Jarim were prepared to counter the prophecies, but then from one moment, they didn't seem to be much different from the warriors of the world. Sigh. The solution was simple. All those who believed the ideology of Mac Wei Gang needed to be killed. It might not be easy to recover, but that is the best way. Is the teacher's method correct? Chen Yuan's method was too daring. When he came to the peaks, he was making it a point to kill the extremists. Maybe because he didn't belong here, he was able to decide their fate quickly. Chen Yuan said, "If you really want to be my disciple, I'll tell you one thing. If you yourself judged the other one to be wrong in any act, don't act merciful. You realize that thinking of yours is halting your growth?" With that, Chen Yuan moved ahead. With the form of an undefeatable man. At that, Ark Young bit his lip and said, "I will remember that." Good. But, teacher, what about them? He pointed to the three elders across the bridge. They were key figures of moderation. Which side? Ark Young answered, "All moderates." Is that so? Then leave them alive after making them beg for their lives. When Chen Yuan moved, Ark Young said, "They are the leaders of the moderate faction." Leaders? They aren't shaken by the ideology of blue sky. Teacher, we can leave them. Chen Yuan nodded. Ah, thank you. Chen Yuan didn't kill all of them, he only wanted to deal with the evil people in Unjam. Fat. Worried that Chen Yuan would change his mind, Ark Young moved to the elders first. Despite being on different sides of the peak, Elder Song, who witnessed a brutal murder, couldn't hide his anger. Ark Young. You bastard. What is all this? Are you even sane? Bringing in a demonic cult member into the snow line? Elders. Please hold your reins. What? Are you really saying such things now? Elder Song had no intention of listening to him. He decided that Ark Young sided with the demonic cult. At that, Ark Young raised his hands to show that he wasn't going to harm them and said, "I have no intention of fighting. Give me a chance to explain." Explain? What are? Did you know that Elder Mac ordered the squad to kill me too? What? Elder Song, who was enraged, stopped. This was something he didn't know. Frowning, he asked, "What do you mean?" At his question, Ark Young explained everything which happened. When the elders heard it, they were all shocked. Especially by the fact that Mac Wei Gang had controlled the warriors and elders too. However, a more worrisome fact was revealed in the story of Ark Young. The entrance point changed? Yes. At that time, Elder Yang couldn't understand it. Elder Song. The entrance can only be changed by the Lady and our Lord, right? No one other than those with the blood of the Lord could change the entrance point. Moreover, if the change was done without telling the people inside, then those who would leave wouldn't be able to enter. Did the mist change it? All the three elders were shocked, because they knew what kind of person she was for her husband. Feeling betrayed, Elder Song opened his mouth. Mak Wei Gang. What the hell is that bastard up to? It was then. Grr. The entire peak shook. But the epicenter wasn't here, which made all the elders turn their heads. What? What is that peak? Where they looked, a great mountain peak they had never seen before appeared. Heavenly Mountain Peak, where the Lord stayed, was the last peak, but now another peak appeared. That was when someone moved past them. Shoo. Who? Ark Young, who saw who moved, called. Teacher? It was Chen Yuan and Hu Bong. Chen Yuan didn't bother looking back and said, How long do you plan on talking? Follow me. No. The elders were dumbfounded. A person from the world was asking them to follow him? But they didn't have any other choice. Whoa. From the new high peak, a mysterious energy was spreading out in all the directions, giving out chills. For all they knew, their lord was already in danger. Chapter 144. Jarim. Part 4. Elder Song, who was chasing after Chen Yuan, exclaimed. He wanted to chase him and tell him that it was difficult to catch up to him. But that man's movement was too much for him to even catch up to. Elder Song. What is that peak? Ark Young, who was next to him, asked. Elder Song was 230 years old. He was one of the 3 people who have lived the longest here. He was the one who would know something. However, even that man knew nothing about this new peak. I've lived here for over 180 years, but never heard of another peak. Suddenly, Elder Song frowned. He certainly never heard of a peak. No. However, he did remember the stories which were handed down to the people in here. A long time ago, there was a scholar in Kunlun Mountains who sealed something in the peak. Some said it had treasure in it, and some said there was a monster. Is that the place where they sealed it? If something important had been sealed, it would have been invisible to others. Elder Song mumbled in a low voice. I don't know what exactly, but something must have been sealed by the ancestors. Sealed by ancestors? Even I don't know what it was. However, if measures were taken to prevent it from being seen, it must be dangerous for the world. Whoa! Weird energy was constantly rushing out from the peak. A chilling energy so great that it overpowered all the peaks. Elder Song started to be afraid of what was sealed. Whatever it is, we should never let Mak Wei Gang get his hands on it. The others nodded with a serious expression. Eventually, they reached the final peak. Right. As expected, the residence of the first elder was empty at the peak. It was the Lord who asked this elder to move. Elder Jiang has served the Lord for a long time. Unlike the others, they knew that Jiang Cheongguk had served the Lord since ancient times. He would know exactly what that mysterious peak was. As they passed through, the residence was revealed. Chen Yuan was the first to arrive. There were several buildings in there, and in the center was the tiled house of the Lord. The feeling of someone residing in it. As they entered through the front gate, they saw the main building with a large yard. Hu Ban pointed to the room which seemed to be the Lord's, and said, "The breath is pretty rough from over." Before he could finish, a shout was heard. Who would dare to enter the heavenly mountain peak? A voice with energy in it. Just seeing that, it was definite that someone was inside. Huh? Is there someone here? Hu Ban muttered as he scratched his head. Even he couldn't feel it. This is the one. Unlike him, Chen Yuan had sensed this energy the moment he stepped foot onto the snow line. The energy which was the most powerful of all in this place. And he felt it move when the new peak soared. 1. On the verge of death. As Hu Bong said, the breathing was rough and ragged. The exact thing seemed to be known by the other person. Chen Yuan passed the yard and tried to enter the residence. Fat. Something flew through the window of the room. It was an inkstone. A heavy inkstone with energy on it, and Chen Yuan caught it lightly. Pack. Seems pretty good. His palm, which was holding the inkstone, trembled. It was the aftermath of holding it. He looked at the window where a middle-aged man with thick eyebrows, bewildered eyes, and one hand on his back, was looking out. This man looked at Chen Yuan in shock. He seemed surprised that Chen Yuan caught the inkstone. He isn't an ordinary person. The middle-aged man was Jiang Cheongak, the first elder of Unjam and the most capable man in here. And since he decided that Chen Yuan wasn't ordinary, he immediately called for swords. As he moved, 3 invisible swords appeared in the yard. Wuong. Hap. The invisible swords moved towards Chen Yuan at the same time. Each sword unfolded a different technique. Ah! Even Hu Bong was shocked when he saw it. This level of skill was definitely amazing. My lord, be careful. Shoo! The invisible swords aiming for Chen Yuan came in and were stopped by 12 invisible swords that came from various directions. Wuong! Clang! As the path was blocked, the techniques being unfolded were also stopped. How? Jiang Cheongak was shocked. The maximum number of invisible swords he could bring was 5. Considering that he couldn't concentrate fully on the opponent because of the Lord, who was critically ill, this man was a monster. Tremble! He tried to move the invisible swords, which were blocked, but they didn't even budge. JJJJ. Qua. Black blood flowed from the Lord's mouth. Jiang Cheongak's face distorted at that. What should I do? The Lord could lose his life if the fight went on. However, it could be more dangerous if the invaders were allowed in. At that moment, Chen Yuan opened the window wide and entered. You. Come closer and the condition is serious. Ignoring his words, Chen Yuan walked over and put his hand on the Lord's neck. No. Shoo. Jiang Chuangak tried to stab the man in the heart, but Chen Yuan caught it without even sparing him a glance. Pack. What energy is this? Don't try anything funny. Crack. UK. Chen Yuan broke the blade. Jiang Cheongak, who had his finger broken in the process, was shocked, but Chen Yuan was touching the pulse of the Lord. Huh? He was afraid this man would harm his Lord, but he didn't. What are you trying to do? Poison. It wasn't like this middle-aged man wasn't aware of it. The problem was that even the Lord who knew how to counter the poison was turning weak. Chen Yuan said. Remove your hand, your Lord. What? If he let go, then the energy he was sending to the Lord to counter the poison would halt, and the man would die. The only reason this man was still alive was because of his faithful subordinate who kept supplying him with energy. What nonsense are you? It was then that someone rushed inside and said, Elder Jiang. Elder Ark? It was Ark Young. And following him, several other elders entered the room. Looking at the Lord, who was on the bed in a horrible state, they noticed what was happening. Their Lord was dying. El Lord. Jiang Cheongak was shocked at the appearance of the 4 elders. So Ark Young explained. Elder Jiang. We don't have time, please let Sir handle it. What? The way Ark Young was treating that other man like an honorary being. Even the elders didn't seem to say anything about it, What was their relationship with this new man? He is my teacher. Teacher? Elder Ark, do you have any idea what you? This is an urgent situation. Please trust me this once and entrust the Lord to him. Ark Young was concerned about the situation. However, he trusted Chen Yuan, who was looking at the Lord's dying state. When everyone didn't seem convinced, Ark Young said, "My teacher is a heavenly master-level warrior." At that, all the elders were shocked. He heavenly master? Heavenly master level? For a moment, they doubted their ears. They knew that Chen Yuan was stronger than them, but not this strong. The best warrior of Jarim, Jiang Cheongguk, was also shocked. He too thought that heavenly master level was legendary. Is that true? Heavenly master level? He thought it was possible since he used 12 invisible swords. He knew that this man had the strength to overpower him, but it was still a shock. Despite his frown, he removed his hand when he heard that. Please help our Lord. With that, he stepped back. Chen Yuan sat there and placed his palms on the back of the Lord. Tack. It was to determine how far the poison had spread. While protecting the body from the poison, he observed the inside. Analyzing the toxic substance. Nano had already started the analysis. Chen Yuan frowned as he kept feeling the poison. The poison has entered the bone marrow. The Lord wasn't in a state that could be easily saved. This man was almost a corpse filled with poison to the rim. It was surprising that he was still alive. Grunt. Elder Song and others grunted at the sight of their Lord in this meek manner. They didn't even have the permission to meet him. The first elder, his daughter, and his son-in-law, Mak Wei Gang, were the only ones who could. Did he use poison? That Mak Wei Gang. Is this what he has come to? The elders couldn't hide their anger. Unlike them, Jiang Cheongguk just bit his lip. He had the same opinion about Mak Wei Gang, but he was ashamed that despite serving the Lord, he hadn't noticed something like this. But even if it is Mak Wei Gang, would he be able to do this to our Lord? At the same time, he was skeptical. Despite not being trained in martial arts, the Lord of the Green Forest excelled at tactics, energy, and 5 spirits. Which meant he would surely have found the abnormalities in his body. Is the miss involved in this? He couldn't help but think that this all happened with the help of his daughter. She was the one responsible for the Lord's meal. Even so, the Lord must have known something. Lord. He felt sorry for his Lord. Quack. At that moment, the Lord coughed. A dark blue blood touched the floor with a pungent smell. Lord. Everyone was shocked and worried. Chen Yuan decided that he needed to detoxify the poison and, more importantly, push it out. As the entire room was dark, Chen Yuan put his hand on the shadow on the floor. Shoo! Ah? Everyone was shocked. What Chen Yuan pulled out from the shadows was a glass bottle of 1L. He opened the cap with a swing of his finger and a drop of thick red liquid floated up from the bottle's mouth. I didn't think I would use it like this. The blood of a Mugi. Even one drop should do the task as it was similar to an elixir. What is that? Curious, Elder Song asked what that was, but Chen Yuan didn't answer and dropped the blood into the Lord's mouth. And the change occurred. Quack. The Lord struggled in pain. Everyone was already on the verge of anxiousness and tried to approach the Lord when Hubong stopped them. Wait. Interfering in such things would make things more difficult. The blood of a spirit beast, which was known to be the head of the others, had great power. And Hubong knew better than anyone what the side effects would be. It has to be that. As the blood of a Mugi was taken in, Earth Chi was activated. Normal people have an aura of 5 elements within. And the 5 are always in balance, but if it is broken by one element, then the condition would worsen. The Earth Chi needs to be suppressed. Since Chen Yuan was heavenly master level, he could handle all 5 spirits. When he reached out the hand, the energy in nature shook. "Oh!" the elders exclaimed as they witnessed the energy of nature. In the snow line, only the water could be accessed, but this man was bringing in the energy from outside the snow line. Whoa! Quack! The Lord's convulsions, which had been shaking his body, subsided. Fortunately, there were no more problems. He is a great handler of elements. Rather, his body was full of pure energy. The Lord had learned the method to obtain the purest energy. And that was why his body allowed the poison. Soon. Thanks to that, it wasn't tough to suppress the earth chi. As the power of a Mugi spread to all the body parts, all 5 internal organs began to regenerate. They started detoxifying. Shoo! The pace was fast. The dark blue veins had risen all over the skin and the original color was restored. All the elders were shocked at it. Oh! Oh! The Lord complexion? Tears flowed from Jiang Qiongvek's eyes. Lord! It was strange not to cry if their Lord, who was dying, was revived. He looked at Chen Yuan. I should apologize for not believing him. Now that he helped, he decided to apologize for his previous actions. It was then. Growling. The ground shook as if an earthquake happened, and the tiled houses shook too. What is this? Much stronger than before. The elders were startled by the roar, which came and ran outside to check it, only to be shocked. Quang! Huh? The peak? The sound of the 10th peak, which newly appeared. The huge peak was shaking. Quang! A constant roar from within, as if something was trying to get out. What the hell is happening? It seemed like they had to go there to know what was happening. However, their Lord wasn't in the best state to move. Then, they heard someone. Someone staggering back. Miss. It was Ha Baekryong. She spoke with a frail expression, a face full of bruises. Help me. My husband is in danger.